Hey, welcome to Hear Us Out. I'm Paul,
And I'm Patrick.
and today's episode brought to you by um,
Brought to you by Bums. We're both sitting on them. Are you?
that would be no. I was going to say that would be an interesting sponsor for us.
It really
Um,
would. It would be
Not
very difficult to ship and sell them, though.
yes, though they would be going like hotcakes. Okay,
So,
so on today's episode, anyway, we're going to be talking about cars and spaceships and other types of vehicles from movies and their cool intros. So
that's it. And Paul, cards on the table for two things. Number one, anybody who's ever watched the channel before knows that I am mostly made out of car nerd. I also have other nerd abilities that enable me to do the show, but I am pretty much fueled by a love of the automotive. But I will say, this was Paul's call. This was Paul's
yeah,
idea. It's vehicles, not just cars, and I'm into it. But I don't want anybody going, "Oh, is this Patrick forcing this on us?" No, I have plausible deniability. This actually came from Paul. And the second thing is, Paul, for anybody from Ireland, we are saying vehicles. There will be no jokes, none of the old Irish jokes about other pronunciations of vehicle, etc., etc.
very true.
Because we've had enough of that joke, and I've just managed to squeeze it in there. Irish people will get it. Sure, 'tis a fine vehicle you're driving.
Fine vehicle. Um, Anyway, so the idea for this episode came from the new Batman film, which is pretty cool. I think everybody can
Yes, that's a nice way
agree.
of putting it.
And this is based on, so this is a little bit of a spoiler, a little bit of scene from the new Batman film, just the intro of the new Batmobile. That was such a really cool episode, or a real cool intro to this car. So much so that I had to. I was just thinking about it, going like, "Oh, it's such a perfect moment in the movie," which goes because it's so visceral. It's a great introduction to the Batman, um, like type, I guess. He's a lot more noisier in the film, but yeah, so it's got a little bit of kind of guttural feeling and viciousness and stuff. So that's the kind of Batman, the Batmobile that we're getting for the new Batman. And from that, it was such a great scene. It was such a great scene that I was just like, oh man, thinking back of all the other kind of great cars and great vehicles in their introductions and stuff, because they become characters themselves, which is they also have to just meld with the story and with the setting and everything like that. So that's where this kind of Batmobile really does set into it. It really
That's a
does.
good point. That's a really good point. We should actually call out because me being car nerd man, I kind of threw some criteria at Paul saying, look, if we're going to do this and we're going to choose these things, I can name and describe almost every vehicle intro. Well, particularly car, motorcycle, truck, or similar, in some cases buses. I could reenact them for you because I'm so stupidly crazy into cars and movies. Um, but anything that is on our list had to pass muster on being number one, a cool intro, a really good intro scene. So it's not just that this is a great vehicle in the film at some point. It has to be something that had a cool intro. It also has to have a significance in the story, or like Paul says, really say something, share something, or even in some cases be another character in the movie. And I think, Paul, since people measure their Batman and Batmans, their Batmanuses by the suit, and ever since Christian Bale, the voice. But let's face it, the Batmobile is also another measure. So to have the Batmobile in the latest The Batman be a big dark growl before anything else happens, its intro really did. It was in keeping, not just with the tone of the movie, but in the tone of the Batman.
Mm.
So that's going to be a theme for the rest of the show. That usually there will be some significance or at least some art when it comes to the choice of vehicle and how they introed it.
Yeah, yeah, like it has to be kind of within those areas. I just want to. I know Just wanted to play a little bit of the sound of the Batmobile, if you will, just because we wanted to get you a little bit of idea of the setting of this car, which me and Patrick also have a lot to say about the
Oh, it's a
design of that car.
ridiculously stupid vehicle, but that's a whole other episode.
Yeah. So this is the sound of the car starting up. It
It's a jet engine roar. It's not a car starting up at all.
No, it's the jet engine first is the first part that you hear about this car, and it sounds like a scream, and so it gets everybody's attention in the scene, and which makes sense. Batman, when he gets into that car, he's not being ninja stealthy Batman. He's definitely going like, all right, time to take out the big guns. This is what you're facing now, kind of thing. So
Yeah,
that's where that comes from.
it's very much not Ninja Batman in that moment. It's definitely look at me, I punch you directly in the face, Batman style of car noise.
Mm.
I personally I loved it as part of the film. It was one of the things that actually, and not just because it was a car, but it was one of those moments in the movie that stuck with me. Going, yeah, that was really really good. They had a menacing off-screen noise followed by the visual intro, then followed by it doing its part for the story. So yeah, the Batmobile was done good in the latest Batman movie, and that's not always true. That's not always true. Looking at you, Joel Schumacher. Anyway, Paul, there are other like the title of this video is best movie vehicle intro ever, sort of thing. We all know the answer. It's pretty much the Back to the Future DeLorean. The dropping of a tailgate. It's a DeLorean that's had time machiney stuff grafted onto it. Doc Brown has been stealing dry ice from the Libyans along with uranium. And then that whole intro scene and the fact like it passes muster as far as, yeah, is it a cool intro? Yes. And everything that happens in its whole intro scene. Is it a huge part of the story? Yes, it is. It's another character in the franchise. So there's your winner. So we're ruling it out on obviousness. That's why the ones I've picked and the ones Paul have picked aren't going to include this before anybody starts commenting. How could you not have the DeLorean? We know, but it would make for a very short video if we just went straight to, yeah. So who's the fastest one in the race? It's Usain Bolt. Cool. Let's not bother running. Let's just take him out and watch everybody else run for a bit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like it's this the whole interesting around it is pinnacle for this vehicle, for the DeLorean in Back to the Future. If they got this wrong, it probably wouldn't be as classic as like anything else. So like yeah, it had to be very important. The whole kind of like revealing of it from the van and everything was very kind of space age and stuff. The DeLorean was a hotcake, like good looking car at the time, so ran like crap.
It has its own backstory in real life that was so incredible. But my favorite little bit of Back to the Future trivia is apparently they were trying to give them Ford Mustangs to do it, and somebody I won't say which because I don't want to attribute it to the wrong person. I believe it was Ivan Reitman, director. What's his name? Anyway, no, Zemeckis. Robert Zemeckis, I think, said, yeah, Doc Brown doesn't drive a fucking Mustang, including the F word. So, yeah, which is fair enough at the time. DeLoreans, a lot more unique, a lot weirder, and also didn't have a speedo that could go high enough to actually achieve 88 miles an hour, folks. If anybody ever sits in a real one, you'll notice, hang on, this thing doesn't actually register what it did in the movie. Yeah, they edited the speedo. They made a change. Anyway, before I get car nerdy, Paul, you have to stop me if that happens.
No.
The last bit of car nerdiness to get out of the way. Things like Smokey and the Bandit, that Trans Am, that's not going to be included because it wasn't an amazing intro. Amazing car, amazing feature, amazing everything. The Baby Driver Subaru, it's only in one scene. It's an awesome scene, but it's not the big thrust of the movie. It's not a featured player in the story. So there are going to be lots of ones that are ruled out for things like that. If you're wondering why we didn't just pick your favorite all-time movie car or vehicle, or ship or whatever it might be, it has to be a cool intro and significant. So Paul, with that, do you want to go for your first one? Do you want to give us one?
Yes, I will go for Christine because Very
Classic.
cool intro. And yeah, so Christine, which goes, so the film is about a horror movie. Is a horror movie. It's a Stephen King book about a car that kills. Um, the intro is fantastic because it rolls. As you can see in the scene, it essentially rolls assembly lines going on, and then so it shows two white cars first, and then the red one, the Christine car, kind of thing. And while this is playing as well, "Bad to the Bone" is playing as its background song, which is great. But it also the fantastic thing is it also is slightly distorted, so it sounds really creepy and kind of cursed.
Right. I never
Um,
noticed that. That's cool.
Yeah, so and then obviously, which is the scene, the intro scene also ends with a man getting his hand stuck or like slammed by the hood of the car, which is very indicative of what's going to be happening throughout the movie kind of thing. But that's a real cool moment. It's a very short, like 2 minute intro, excuse me. Um and then like yeah, so just with the music, with the rolling assembly line, and then with the injury happening, it kind of gives you this full view of what this car is going to be like, kind of thing. So it's just a fantastic intro.
Do you want to know and this is a funny thing. I remember the introduction of Christine because it's not Stephen King's greatest adapted movie, let's say. It's still good in places. I enjoy it. I absolutely enjoy it for what it is. But I remember that I didn't remember the Bad to the Bone was playing. That makes so much sense and it's so on the nose. But I do remember the assembly line, and specifically that it was the custom paint color ordered car. Like everything else was their whatever factory run they were throwing out, and
Mm-hmm.
this cherry red one stands out. And then somebody's working on it, and it does the kind of looking at the car, looking at his hand, looking at the car, looking at his hand, and then the car eats his hand, which is closing the bonnet or the hood, depending on what part of the world you're in. I love the intro for Chrissy. I'm so glad you picked it because from a car point of view, the car is the star of the movie, and of the story. But as far as intros go, it's not actually that hokey. For a film with a bit of a hokey premise in some ways, and is hokey in places, its intro of the red kind of Plymouth Fury, which is again great choice of car for it because it's a great name. Uh, it really is quite underplayed. It's not like it jumps off the assembly line and grabs somebody. It like it chomps a guy's hand in a very, oh, it definitely felt like it could have been an accident. Nobody bats an eyelid, and that sets the tone for the rest of the movie. I like it.
Yeah, it is perfect, and the way that they also shoot it, that makes it look like a mouth as well with teeth, because the Trans Am kind of car has that weird kind of jagged bonnet or hood kind of part to it, so it makes it really well to teeth, which automatically makes it more nefarious and evil and all that
Yeah,
kind of stuff. So yeah, that was a
and
great one.
people anthropomorphize cars because headlights are eyes and grills are smiles and all the rest. So if you can have a shot of a bonnet and it looks like it's gums with teeth practically, then yeah, you're doing a great job.
Yeah, no, perfect. So, which is onto your one of your choices. So, which one would you like to go for?
Well, how about we go with my most conventional? So we had three picks each, and what I went for was kind of a conventional and unconventional, and then one that's even a bit more different. So if you wouldn't mind going for a black Lamborghini, and for anybody out there who hasn't watched movies, Cannonball Run. Cannonball Run movies, there were three of them. People often think there were only two. There was a third. It was called Cannonball Fever in some jurisdictions. Two of them start, or all three of them start with a Lamborghini. The first one is a black Lamborghini. The second one, it's a white and trivia question, red Lamborghini, because the whole intro is that it gets washed down. So it was white painted over red, and then they turn a hose on it. That's how they're going to get away from the cops, change the color of the
Ah,
car. But
clever.
the third one is the dumbest of all. It's a red Lamborghini that skips across a lake like a skipping stone. It's the reason. It's a terrible film. John Candy's in it, and so is Eugene Levy. None of the original cast are in that third Cannonball. It's extremely hard to find. I couldn't even get it on DVD. I was looking a few years ago. But
Wow.
Paul, back to the first one. Why is the iconic black Lamborghini from Cannonball Run significant? Cannonball Run is a personal favorite of mine. It's a car film, so it deserves a place on this list in one way or another. But that intro is, it starts with a sunrise over what is a Nevada, Vegas style desert, and this black Lamborghini going flat out with the best sound ever. Because they were smart enough to have Ray Stevens' classic kind of cheesy describing what they're going to get up to song of that style of movie, you know? You got to rain, you got to race, you got to blah, blah. It's like, it's real from sea to shining sea. Get it? We're going to race from one coast to the other. That's the whole premise of the movie in the song. But what they also do is turn up the engine note. So you have this beautiful V12 scream, and all of the visuals are just this car looking cool, doing cool things, and farting around, annoying the cops. It's the rebellious spirit of it all. And that's what the movie is. The movie is based on a story, based on a real life story about some guys that I won't get car nerdy, but they're famous in the car world, who decided we're going to drive from one side of the country to the other in protest of speed limits that were being brought in certain places. Not that they were against all speed limits. It was never that stupid. And then this is the movie that ended up being made a few years later about that particular adventure. The reason the Lamborghini is such a perfect exemplar of what the movie is going to be about, it's not just about going fast from one side of the country to the other. Mm-hmm. It's all about showing off while doing it. A black Lamborghini is the worst choice to blend in anywhere.
No. Yeah.
This one particularly, you're like, they added, you know, it's a V12 engine for anybody who knows those cars, famous Lamborghini V12. They put 12 individual tailpipes on it. You don't actually notice it so much in the movie, but they tried to make this thing look even more ostentatious than it did from the factory. And that is the whole point of this movie. It's ha ha ha, we're having fun, getting up to hijinks, messing around on what are the highways and byways of America. And the car kind of intros the film and explains everything you're going to need to know before anything else happens. It's a great intro because it sets not just the scene, it sets the entire movie up perfectly, along with the score playing over it.
Well, that's what you need. Yeah, like, it looks so space age as well that it gives it just it's like, not to make it like, it stands out a lot, especially in the backdrop of where probably most of this film is probably shot, kind of thing. So like, yeah, it definitely kind of draws your eye to it immediately, sets the tone and the aesthetic of what's going to be happening. But I didn't actually, just out of trivia kind of things, I didn't know that the Cannonball kind of Run thing was based on protesting of speed limits in I'm guessing areas in which the only way that you can be there is in a car, essentially. Or
yeah, I think Brock Yates, one of a famous writer, one of his things about it all was that speed limits should probably be lower in a lot of cases, because it's not really about setting a standard speed limit. Some people are going to be in machinery or have more talent to achieve greater speeds or lesser speeds. So this arbitrary throw a number at everything, it didn't quite add up. You know, it didn't quite make sense. But yeah, the interesting thing is, you know, the ambulance, for anybody who's seen Cannonball Run, that ambulance is real. They really did actually do that, where one of them, you know, their wife lay down in the back and pretended to be a patient. They you know, they had a pretend doctor and they did get pulled over. So their thinking was, nobody stops an ambulance. And there's a scene in the movie where the ambulance gets stopped and the cops are like, why are you doing, you know, 100 miles an hour in this small ambulance? Like, if the patient really has to get to LA and we're in the middle of Pennsylvania, how come you're going to drive 2,000 miles? Why can't they just fly? And apparently the story that they give the cops is the same one they use in the movie. It was like, she has something, and if she goes over 100 feet of altitude, she'll die. And yeah, apparently the cops bought it. So I love that that's a real story.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's like speed for...
yeah, instead of not going lower than, what was it, 55 for speed, or 50?
Yeah, 50.
You can't go over 100 feet.
Oh, Yeah. Oh, there's lots of kind of trivia in that one, and a nice
Okay.
introduction to a character, especially a character that you're probably with for such an amount of time within the movie kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
And if anybody, any of the car nerds out there are wondering why did I choose the black Lamborghini from the first film, it's of all the films, it's the only Lamborghini that makes it all the way through. The other ones are intro scene only in one case.
oh, okay, that makes sense. Which is
So what have you got?
I'm gonna go on to which is a one that combines a car and a spacecraft. It is the taxi from Fifth Element. Now,
Right.
it's not. See, my thing with this is it's not all the way through the movie, but it's an iconic kind of car or vehicle within in a sci-fi or within a movie because it tells you so much about the character and also about the world itself. Which goes the which is you can see that the taxi is majority of that like anti-grav device that's underneath it, kind of thing. So it's but and then a very kind of weirdly kind of smooth bodied car, which gives it a lot of kind of feeling about how the world is and everything. So it's all they're trying to make it all sci-fi by having everything has curves and everything like that. So like it's a really good introduction to not only the world and the setting that it's in. It's also really good to introduce which is Corbin Dallas as well, because there's like a computer on board that tells him that he has a certain amount of points on his license, and if he does anything, he won't be able to drive anymore and stuff. It sets this whole rule system up as well of kind of like everything has rules, everything can't be done, kind of thing. So it's it really sets up the world and what it's like. It's also rough and horrible looking as well. Like it looks like it's been through the ringer, which shows also the kind of driver that Corbin Dallas is. So there's lots of personality given to this character, to this small set character, that gives you a lot about Corbin Dallas himself, kind of thing. So I really enjoy this intro. It's a fairly innocuous kind of intro. It just shows the outside of the car or of the um which goes body and stuff. But it's a great reveal. It just bam, there you go. Corbin Dallas gets in it. That's it. Kind of thing.
Yeah, but you're right. It tells you so much about the world and about the character you're meeting too. And that kind of the retro futuristic vibe that they were going for, and Luc Besson's like masterpiece that is Fifth Element. You can even see in the screenshot you have the period of building that's being
Mm.
aped there. It's not all futuristic. Similar to with the lines on the taxi itself, it's like a chopped up low roofed 30s hot rod in some ways. It's got the big swoops of the old Bugatti Royales. It's even got a Bugatti kind of style front. Like car nerds look at this and they see all the influences. So it like says 1,000 things to me, but you're right. It really does say Corbin Dallas, Bruce Willis, who you're going to be dealing with here. He's trapped in a world of rules, even in the vehicle that he has as his livelihood, which sets him up as an everyman. It makes it clear he's grinding out a living. He's trapped by a lot of the rules, and that sets him up for he's on the edge. He's been pushing as far as he can. He's got enough points in his license that any more action and it's curtains for his career. And then, of course, what's going to happen next when they do that. You're like, right, what's going to happen in this? It gives you that kind of right. We know that something's going to happen where he's going to risk losing his livelihood now. So yeah, it's a great one. Good pick. I would not have thought of that in a million years. Great pick.
Yeah, I like it because it also is a great kind of setting for introducing the relationship between Corbin Dallas and Lilu. So it's a great setting as well. Kind of thing, and then also the action scene that follows their meeting and stuff. It also gives you the skill of Corbin Dallas that he is an action man kind of thing. That he's able to avoid and not get caught by the cops in a taxi that doesn't seem like it should be able to in any way go fast or. escape them. So it's a really good. I like it. I know it's probably not seen as probably the best one, but if for me it was just it was a no brainer just to kind of add it. Because I wanted to add. I'll be honest with you. I wanted to add Event Horizon onto it, but it's not a great introduction actually to the ship. Um, because it feels like a little bit stereotypical of just a ghost, like a
Well,
a
the fact that
mystery.
we did anything and I didn't manage to bring a Trans Am into it, it's we're making some tough choices here, people. We're making some tough choices. Although I am glad that you mentioned Event Horizon because we've gone too many episodes without those words being spoken.
I did want to do it, but it's stereotypical of a haunted house kind of thing. So I just felt like it couldn't be added, kind of
Gotcha.
thing.
Well, Paul, if you want, then I will. And I also promised Paul that at least one of my choices wouldn't have tires of any description. So everybody's assuming I've gone for a boat. I haven't.
Is it
I've
night boat?
actually gone. No, there's always a fjord or a canal. Um, there's one of the great intros of all time. Just so happens to contain some vehicles, and the one that I've chosen is the Imperial Star Destroyer from the opening scene of Star Wars. Anybody who got to see Star Wars in the cinema at any point in their life, and do it if you get a chance. One of the reasons this movie blew people away is because of not just the opening crawl, it's that intro where a little Corvette comes flying by, a little spaceship comes flying by, and something shooting at it. That something comes in over the camera and is so immense and so long that it was in the end it was parodied by Mel Brooks and Spaceballs. We Brake for Nobody, and that scene goes on for a very long time because it is an incredibly first they show you space, they show you stars, they show you the vastness and the emptiness, then they show you something small flying past in trouble, and no matter how big space is, it felt really small by the time that massive warhead shaped Imperial Star Destroyer comes past. It doesn't hurt that it's also the setting on that ship or on that vehicle, as I have to call it now to try and make it fit into this, because I know I'm being
Yeah.
cheeky. Um, you've got Leia. It's where we meet principal cast. It's where we meet some of the most iconic characters of all time. But for me, the thing is, as an intro, it doesn't come more effective as far as wowing people, showing immensity when you've already just had the universe blow your mind open. It's like, oh my God, this is really a space movie. Before there were that many space movies, the immensity that Star Wars captured few other films had done before. But to have this level of essentially a big meanie showing up in something that much bigger than our little hero ship. Also, Paul, I don't know if you've ever noticed, but it's the shape of an arrowhead. It's
Mm-hmm.
a pointy, aggressive, weapon-shaped vehicle. Whereas you look at the flying donut that Han Solo's in, you've got essentially the shape of a shield. So there's a real underlying tone that all of the Imperial stuff looks like warmongering machinery, whereas they do a great job with the Millennium Falcon of saying, well, this is a smuggler ship, but it's also going to be your hero. So yeah, as far as intros go, when I was trying to think of this and trying to think of something that wasn't a car, it stood out head and shoulders above anything else for me. Is maybe one of the greatest intros of anything of all time.
Yeah, this when you said it to me, this was such a big runner for the title of best like intro to a movie vehicle, kind of thing. It's like as you said, it looks like a weapon. It looks like a weapons platform. But the bigger thing is that when it flies over you and it's such immense size, it gives you this awful feeling of oppression. That's
Exactly.
what the Imperium is all about. The Empire is entirely an oppressive regime and stuff, and there's nothing better than seeing like this little Corvette blockade runner, swooping by, and then just suddenly this like slow looking massive Imperial ship kind of like just going. yeah, we're here. You're not gonna get around us, kind of thing, and you're not gonna outgun us, so you might as well run. But yeah, it's an excellent, and then the sound as well.
Oh yeah,
The sound is constantly just it's so good, like so kind of just constant once it comes on. Once the first part comes on, it's just constantly there, which is just great. And then they become such a staple in the background that anytime they show up
yeah.
within, they're so dangerous, And this is one of them. Like,
For my money, it represents the Empire a la Star Wars in my mind more than a Death Star or more than anything else. This is their big symbol in my head, and I think it's because that was the introduction for me. This big evil Dorito that's just like, wow, that thing is, it just flew over my head in space, and it took what felt like 20 minutes, and it made the planet seem small. Like, don't get me wrong, great shot. The shot is what made this, but that's what intros of anything are about. It's about picking your shot, using your sound, a la Cannonball Run or the Batmobile, using its its makeup or its dirtiness or its gritty feeling, like the taxi for Corbin Dallas, or in this case, we have to describe an empire very, very quickly. Oh, I know. Let's just get the most humongous, most overbearing thing to happen to everybody just seconds after we introduce them to sitting in space. Like, wow, well done, George Lucas. Don't know if anybody's ever complimented him on Star Wars before.
no, I don't think he's. I think that small indie film that he's done.
Yeah, he's done well out of it. I think though he's all right.
And yeah, I enjoy the "we break for nobody" kind of joke that is in Spaceballs. It's like it does just take a long time to get through their ship, and which is just a great homage to the size and feeling of it,
Perfect.
which is cool. Well, on from a big spaceship onto another big spaceship, which goes, but it's not as big as people think. I will say that.
I know what you're gonna pick.
Yeah. So, the next one I'm picking is the Nostromo, which goes now. The reason I picked the Nostromo is because Aliens is such a fantastic film, and you need to have the setting for it be as eerie and as creepy as possible. So the introduction that you get from the Nostromo is this big lungering thing. Just it looks like a city, just going
Yeah.
through space. And then you get those interior shots of just like machinery, but it's all empty, which is just fantastic. It's a very eerie, creepy kind of moment within it. So this is your setting. This is the haunted house, the playground that you're gonna get for the
Yeah.
next while, kind of thing. Now, the reason I said that it's big but not as big as people think, um, if you can see the bottom image, that's actually the Nostromo. The big, huge city thing that's at the back is actually the cargo that it's lugging.
Yeah, it's towing. It's a tug. It's towing stuff around. It's a transport, and those big kind of gherkin looking, that big four gherkin city mining thing. I remember when I was a kid thinking that's huge, and then loving, because Alien is so good at making confined spaces even more confined, realizing its enormity made the Nostromo seem even smaller. I thought that was genius.
Yeah, like that's the thing when it starts detaching and stuff, and you realize that the whole ship isn't just is that and this. It's this small kind of setting, which is great. And even though it's smaller than the cargo container thing, it's still quite large inside. So there's enough room to kind of feel like this thing could be anywhere, which is a big problem and a great setting for it. It was very close one between two other vehicles from the Alien franchise. One of them is in my honorable mentions, so I'll go through that. Well, actually,
Oh,
one of them the other one should have been as well.
then I'll save it till because I was about to name because yeah, let's when we get there, let's have fun with that because yeah, I think there's actually maybe three things I could probably pick, possibly even four from the Alien franchise in at large
yeah,
that fit the description. Now that I think about it, I'm glad you picked this though, the original and best.
yeah, that's the thing. Now there's another ship within this one that could have also. Yeah, there's a few within this, but this one is a good one because it gives you the setting of the work life of these people, the the weird mechanical dark industrial kind of setting of this thing, that it's like all piping and gears and that it feels like a working ship as well, and it gives you that dark oppressive feeling, that makes it really kind of good of kind of transposing, I guess the best thing is transposing the long haunted corridors into long gangplanks that are darker, just because why would a company spend a lot of money on lighting in a ship
Yep.
kind of thing?
Oh, it's perfect description. It's haunted house in space. Alien is sci-fi horror. As much as people forget it, as much as Aliens is sci-fi action horror, and Alien 3 is both again, I guess.
Yeah,
And Alien 4 we don't talk about.
Alien 4 is unforgivable.
So Paul,
That's
do you
me.
want me to bring the tires back? Will I
Yes,
bring
bring us back to Earth.
bring us back to Earth with a bump? I'm going to choose Ghostbusters Ecto 1. And people will think, oh, intro scene for Ecto 1 is coming out of the firehouse with the sirens blazing, and they're off on their first, their first legitimate call. It's not. It is so much better than that, because it is Ray Stantz, the lovely, lovely Ray, lovely, sweet, sweet Ray, the Ghostbuster who's footing the bill by remortgaging his family home or whatever it might be. He pulls up in this old kind of late 50s Cadillac. It's not a hearse. Everybody always thinks hearse. It's an ambulance. It's kind of a limo ambulance style thing. I just love it, because as it's driving up, Bill Murray's line is, "You can't park that here."
Yeah,
And that sets the scene for, what is this piece of crap coming into scene? It's intriguing. He's running over to it, going, "What the hell's this?" Then Happy Ray jumps out, sets his character up even more, optimistically, childishly, just going, "It's all right, everybody. Don't worry. I've found the car." He
yeah,
he literally says, "Don't worry. You can all stop worrying. I have sorted this out." And then proceeds to tell him that he has spent the amount of money he spent is ridiculously too much. It needs everything from transmission to brakes to everything. He lists uh, all all parts of the car. He pretty much lists except the steering wheel, and it says everything about where they were at that point. They're a bunch of messers. You've already kind of gotten their vibe earlier in the movie, but this sets them up being at a time where they're really are still, they haven't got their crap together. And that's why I love this intro, because the next time you see the car, it is painted, it is just cool, it has that great exit from the firehouse scene, and it's like, oh, the heap of crap is now the shit, if I can use that play on words.
hmm,
And you're like, wow, so the Ghostbusters went from this stupid idea from cheeky chancers to, whoa, this is a shift in gears in the film. Maybe these people have their act together. And from that point on in the movie, they do. As a car nerd, I would argue that almost any movie can be broken down if it's done well enough with vehicles, to the point where the vehicle actually sets the change point in the movie. And in this case, I think Ecto 1 does that. I think it shows up as a heap, but really, really, really does set up the characters where they are at that point, reinforces who they are at that point, and then proceeds to show up again and completely set the tone, reset the tone to go, no, now we're getting serious.
oh, I couldn't agree more. Like this is the perfect double intro kind of thing where, yeah, you see the this is the starting off point of our operation, and then the kind of, yeah, refinement and coolness. That sound, the siren sound, like is like no other. You can definitely understand, like when you hear it, you know what it is. There's no way
Yeah.
that you can mistake that sound for anything else except for Ecto 1,
Yep.
kind of thing. So much so that throughout the movie series and stuff, um, that sound stays the same. It absolutely does not change in any form. It might get like a digital remastered upgrade kind of thing, but they don't change the sound because it becomes so synonymous with the look and feel of this thing. And I love that. As I said, I love that double reveal. I love the reveal of the patchwork painted crap ambulance to the yeah, to the finished glorious Ecto one. Did you notice that in Ghostbuster 2 that the equipment on the top gets a little bit larger?
Yeah, and I've often wondered, because they never really explain all the stuff on top. I know some of the cartoons do try and use some of it and turn it into things, but I love the fact that there's a whole roof rack full of things that aren't fully explained. I think that's just great little bit of world building.
It is, yeah. And in 2 they also have that or they get the whole the LED kind of sign thing on the side and stuff, which is a great extra kind of point to it as well.
Yeah, I love it. I love, and look, everybody knows I have a soft spot for this particular movie car. But as far as just filmmaking and storytelling goes, it shows up as a heap of junk to endear you to a ragtag bunch of people even more. And then when you want them to be the coolest people in the room, it becomes the coolest thing in the room for them too. So yeah, it's pure perfection as far as I'm concerned.
Mm.
So Paul, before I try and, if I love it so much, why don't I marry it, as they used to say when we were kids? Before I try and marry an old Cadillac, what have you got?
Actually, I don't have any other ones. I think you have one more.
Oh, are we into honorable mentions then? So
We
have we
can,
done three each? Great.
we,
I'll go with my honorable mention then, if you like. Somebody who's already been mentioned via Fifth Element, Luc Besson was making French movies. Surprisingly enough, again a Taxi, but this time it's the Taxi series, and I'm not talking about Jimmy Fallon and Queen Latifah's American remake. I'm talking about the original French Taxi, and Taxi 2 and Taxi 3, and I think they made it up to 5. I stopped watching after 3. It's there is nothing better than a little bit of fun in a French movie where there's essentially a guy who likes driving really fast, thinks of himself as a racing driver, is a taxi driver, hijinks ensue. It's all good fun. It's all nice. As you can see, his taxi transforms. That's one of the gifts there.
yeah.
But it's, as far as intros go, Taxi 2 sets up, if you don't have to have watched the first movie. It's a great thing. You can watch Taxi 2, and the opening scene is a French national hero, a driver who has done all sorts of stuff in rally and Paris Dakar and racing Formula One, all sorts of things, driving a rally car down a cliff road, and there's an announcer talking about him. It's obviously a rally stage, so this is an official sanctioned race that's happening. And in his mirrors shows up a taxi, and his co-driver is like, "You better hurry up, there's somebody catching us." And he's like, is it Harry Vatanen? Is it one of the most famous drivers of all time? He's like, "No, it's a taxi." And you just can't beat it to introduce your main character as a taxi driver. He's like, "Oh, this tourist won't get out of my way." He's talking about a very famous racing driver. And there's a pregnant lady who's obviously going into labor, and her worried looking partner saying, "Oh, it's okay, we'll get there." He's like, no, I'll get past this guy. It's a real sense of, it gives you a sense of this main character's pure belief, pure belligerence, and complete childishness. But it also reinforces, actually, this guy has a massive amount of talent, and he loves this vehicle. As the vehicle goes itself, the first film sets up that this is his dream. He was a moped courier guy delivering pizza, but what he really wanted to do was be a taxi driver, because he understands and sees it as an honorable profession. And deep down, for all those people who never got to be proper professional race drivers for their entire career, I respect the idea that somebody made an entire movie around the idea of, yeah, you get to drive all day being a taxi driver, and also maybe get into solving crime on the side.
Yeah.
I'm not going to spoil the movies for you.
This is a great moment, actually, because in Taxi and Taxi 2, I remember that transformation kind of thing. So much so that when I watched Transporter with Jason Statham, yeah, it reminds me of Taxi every time when he like steps into the car and puts in his whole code thing, and I was just like, oh, Taxi. It just reminds me of the good old Taxi film that I've watched a couple of times.
Yeah.
But yeah, I also wanted to. The Fifth Element Taxi was kind of a linkage to this as well, because it's such
very nice.
Like, he seems to do taxis really, really well.
He does. He has a type. And for anybody out there who doesn't like foreign film or subtitle film, trust me, Watch Taxi 1 and Taxi 2 at least. I'm not vouching for the franchise after that, I'll be honest. Particularly since I think by the fifth one they go to space or some kind of Fast and the Furious style problems.
Yeah, and I know that there's remakes with like Jimmy Fallon, I think, and
Yeah, and Queen Latifah,
yeah,
that one. No comment. No
yeah,
comment. They do use an awful lot of the original story though. Fair play to them. It's one of those remakes where they don't change that much. They just do all of the story without any of the love, care, and attention that the original movie had. Mark against remakes.
yeah. Yeah, so quickly, my honorable mentions is the first vehicle of that Aliens franchise thing, which is the APC.
So in Aliens, the troop carrying the armor personnel character carrier with it looks like a tug from an airport, and there's a reason for that.
Yeah, the trivia thing is that they couldn't figure out the designs of the APC for so long, and then I think James Cameron, or sorry, Ridley Scott, yeah, James Cameron was like sitting out on the runway of a plane, and he saw it and was just like, I want to use that, kind of thing. So they started building the design of it. The reason that it gets an honorable mention is because it's not in Aliens. There's a group of vehicles that are really cool, but they're never the setting of too much of the combat or overall story. But the APC is kind of a really kind of introduction to the Marines and their kind of mentality of just let's just load everything with as much guns and weapons as they possibly can, kind of thing. And it's a tank kind of thing, so it's meant to show their boisterous ego and unrelenting kind of abilities, and then they get their asses kicked. So it's a real fun kind of moment
Yeah,
to have.
and
My
it oh, sorry, no, I'm just gonna say if you'd picked it as one of your main choices, I would have backed you to the hilt on it because I think it's I think its intro is pretty good because it's it comes off the drop ship, which is also one of the things I would have would have almost picked the drop ship or even the Sulaco itself. I could have picked, but my brain was laughing earlier on, going, I wonder would the power loader that she uses in the end would that count as a vehicle or just an exoskeleton? Because technically, it's their version of a forklift.
yeah,
So the
I think
loader.
yeah, I think it's on the verge of kind of which one. Yeah, like
It would have been cheating, but in this case, I think the APC it's such a great representation of the Space Marines in this case because it's a big thumping fist,
yeah,
and like you say, then they get their ass kicked. But also later, when Ripley is showing that she is the real badass, she drives its wheels off quite literally
mm,
to the point of busting the transaxle. Famously, gear down, gear down. You're grinding
yeah.
gear, you're grinding metal. It's I think it actually fulfills the criteria really, really well, and I'm glad you got it in the honorable mentions.
Yeah, like that's the thing. The intro is actually the intro, the original or the intro is subtle, but it's part of the full story. It turns a corner,
Yeah,
and then they all just jump into it. But it isn't until like later on that you get to see what this thing is capable of that it really goes. But I do like the fact that yeah, the Serena drop ship like is part of your yeah. It looks like a condor, and
yeah,
the Solenko looks like a gun, which couldn't have said anything more than what the Marines are all about.
it really does. It
And then,
really does.
and my other one would have been the derelict spacecraft, the aliens derelict spacecraft kind of thing. But
Yeah, good point.
but the problem with that is its only introduction really is so haunted house that it is a haunted house,
Yeah,
kind of thing. My next one, which is I do like, is the bus from Speed. Um, I did.
it it sets a scene, all right.
Yeah, I do have to say that its introduction is very once again subtle and kind of it becomes it throughout the movie it becomes its own character, so much that I did have to kind of add us to it, and then of course, I have to add the USS Enterprise, of course, I had to add it in. The Enterprise has several really good intros within its lifespan of the stories, and also several different variants, of course, with the Enterprise D and C, and M, or was it MX, which is the original one, and all that kind of stuff.
And which, if you had to, and I'm not saying pick your favorite, but when you think of Enterprise reveals, because I almost think the reveals at this stage, unless you're talking about the original series, the reveal of like an Enterprise D, particularly in the movies when they started doing a reveal of there's the new Enterprise in space dock being retrofitted. That was the first movie, and they used that again in one of the other movies. They actually used it again, I think, didn't they?
Yeah, they've used space dock, the dry dock thing a couple of times just to reveal them really nicely.
Mm.
Which is in the new Star Trek films, the J.J. Abrams ones, that first one is revealed through a space dock moment. I would say that one of my favorites is definitely the second one, Into Darkness, which is it's hiding underwater,
Oh yeah,
and it's
makes no sense as to why it's hiding underwater, really,
no,
but it makes a lot of sense when you see them do the lifting out of water cool shot. You're like, doesn't have to make sense. This is a visual art. That looks cool. Looks cool. Shit. Do it
yeah,
again.
exactly, yeah. It makes no sense at all, but it's a really cool reveal, kind of thing of that spacecraft. I do like the Sovereign class, which is the one that's in the Nemesis thing. The Nemesis is a terrible movie, but it's one of the best looking Enterprise ships, other than like the original one or the Galaxy class one, which is cool. So
Well, Paul, I could, if we were, and this is why I'm glad Paul did usually in April, we do car related stuff for me, but this is covering this month, and I'm glad it came from Paul and not me, because I get to not get the blame essentially for trying to turn this into a car channel. But Paul, before I get too nerdy on anything else, I just want to say there are another 50 choices,
oh yeah,
and I want to hear them in the comments down below. So to anybody watching or listening at any point, get yourself into the comments down below. Let us know what your pick for your favorite vehicle intro, or even just let us know if you've seen the most recent Batman. Did that catch your breath, catch your attention? And while you're at it, don't be afraid to just drive straight into the subscribe button, and then if you can spin sideways and wreck all over the thumbs up and give us a like, that helps us out with yon YouTube analyticos, which helps other people find us. So Paul, I think, yeah, I think we've picked some good ones now.
I
I'm
did.
looking forward to see who's going to be that one viewer or listener that goes and picks the thing that we both wish we'd thought of.
Yeah, the eye roll comments that we've
Yeah,
seen, we're just like, oh, nah.
yeah. And it ain't Herbie for anybody who's putting that in. I don't care how many times you say it. I'm not buying it. Not buying it at all.
um, third encounter, close encounter. That's
It's a vehicle,
yeah.
technically, yeah.
But yeah, so thank
God.
you very much. Which just like, subscribe, ring that notification bell, as Patrick says, and yeah, let us know what your picks are or what you think of our picks. Which goes, and on that note, I've been Paul,
And I've been Patrick.
and we've been Hear Us Out. See you
See you next time.
later. Bye.
Bye bye.